Let's start with a little overview on who I am, where I'm coming from, and who is Clearly. So Clearly is an eyewear retail. We sell glasses, sunglasses, contact lens, and other eye health products. We have 4 stores in Canada, but most of our business is done online. And as you can imagine, buying eyeglasses online is not the most straightforward and easy process to go through. And what we're trying to do is basically make it easier and simpler for people to go ahead with that. Our organization mission is to eliminate poor vision. Poor vision affects students' ability to go to school, people's ability to function in day-to-day life, and even seniors' ability as their life progress. And we want to make eyewear and eye health affordable and accessible for everyone. That's what we're coming from. Now, a little bit about me personally. I've joined Clearly about a year ago, and with the goal of setting up a machine learning team at Clearly. Basically, my job was to lead the effort and prove to the organization that machine learning can help advance the organization and bring benefits. A little bit from a personal point of view, my view is that we should automate and optimize every decision that is being made in the organization because we know machine learning can help with that and can help make better decisions and help the organization move forward. So I joined Clearly a year ago, and my role was to build and set up the machine learning team. And that's basically what I'm going to cover in the conversation in this presentation today. So we'll talk about 4 things. We'll talk about what are we going to deliver? What is a machine learning team doing? We'll talk about where is the data coming from and where are those models running? We'll talk about who do you need on your machine learning team in order to be successful? And we'll talk about how you go ahead, build a team and set it up for success. It makes sense for everyone? Perfect. Okay, so let's start talking about building a delivery plan. So the first thing we need to do when setting up a new team or when establishing a machine learning functionality is basically understand the vision. Why are we here? What are we trying to do? How are we going to help the organization? And keep in mind that that's a very, very wide question. We can be here in order to make more sales. We can be here in order to make bigger sales. We might be here in order to make the warehouse more efficient and reduce our operational cost. Or we might be here to do all of the above. So having a clear vision and a clear understanding of what is the team trying to do, why are we investing money and effort in this, and what is the end results is the first step. Before we even go forward, having a good understanding of our vision. From there, we move into the next step, which is building the project pipeline. So it doesn't matter which area of machine learning you're working on and which organization. You can, as you can imagine, there's millions of opportunities in every organization. So when I started that, just identifying the major business cases and see how machine learning can help the organization, we ended up with over 50 different cases, starting from marketing and sales and operation, and basically every group in the organization could use machine learning and in multiple ways, not just one. So working backwards from the use cases to see which machine learning can be built and where we can contribute is the second step. From there, we move on to selecting which one we're going to start with. Obviously, if you have 50 projects or 100 projects on your list, you won't be able to make everyone happy. So the goal is to make everyone a little happy, choose one or two projects from different department, or make sure the major stakeholders are happy, but identifying kind of what you're going to deliver over the year and then trying to break it down into quarters and have some kind of a quarterly plan of what you're going to build when and where. And to wrap this up, I think the major recommendation would be to start with 2 or 3 quick wins. Start with relatively simple project that can bring nice value to the organization to build your reputation and rapport in the organization and show that machine learning can bring value to the organization. Now, before I wrap up this slide, there's a lot of questions around where should we spend our time? Is it bringing business value or is it building infrastructure that will allow us to bring even more value? And that's a really tough question to answer. It depends on the organization, depends on where we are, depends on what's going on. I can tell you that from my experience, we started with bringing business value and showing the organization that what benefit we can bring, even if at the beginning we need to do a few things manually or things take a little longer than I would like them to take. And once we have this reputation and people trust and believe us, then they're feeling much more confident and willing to allow us to spend time on building infrastructure and investing in the MLOps side of the house. So I would say 1 out of 3 or 4 project is more of a building infrastructure versus the 3 others that are bringing in business value. So that's where I would go with building the delivery plan. Once we have a good understanding of what we want to do and how, the next big question is, okay, we have 2 big questions, is where is the data coming from and where are my models going to run? Now, every organization have multiple sources of data. Ideally, it's one centralized data lake, or it can be a few central systems where the data reside, or it can be multiple different systems. So having a good understanding of where the data is, where is it coming from, where it resides, who understands this data, and who is responsible for this data. So I'll give you a quick example here. If the province name is spelled incorrectly, who is responsible for that? Who is going to fix that so I can use this data in my machine learning model? Or who understands this data exactly and deeply? So all of these questions are super important before we even start building machine learning model to make sure that we have the right data, accurate data, and good data for our models. But because we all know that without good data, no machine learning model can be helpful. The second question is, where are we going to run all of this? And I think we all pretty much align on the idea of running our models in the cloud. It can be Oracle Cloud, as we have just seen, or any other cloud, but we definitely need to have alignment and agreement on which cloud we're using, which development tools and methodology we are using, who is deploying the models to production, who is monitoring the models in production. Is it the same team? Is it a different team? So all of those things has to be clearly defined before we even start building the models and going deeper into the development lifecycle. So once we have the foundation, let's talk about building those models that we love so much. So the way we structure the team, we have 4 roles. in our machine learning teams. And I'll go in high level describing those roles in this slide. And the next slide, I'll go into a little deeper with a few examples of each one of those roles. So the first one is a machine learning engineer. And the scope of a machine learning engineer in clearly is using managed tools and vendor products to deliver value. So building machine learning functionality using managed tools. As opposed to that, we have the senior machine learning engineer that actually build, configure, run, optimize, and do everything for those machine learning models. So if we have a managed tool that we can use, we prefer to obviously leverage this tool. And if not, then we will build our own model and implement it for our needs. Two other roles we have in the team is the data scientist. We found that sometimes what business needs is not necessarily a machine learning model that predicts things for them, but more of the ability to just answer questions about the data. So giving the data that we have, they have all kinds of questions, and we need someone to dig into this data and have a good understanding of what's going on there, what's happening there, and why customers behave the way they do. So the ability to answer those questions fall on the data scientist side. And lastly, we have MLOps, people that are helping us build the pipelines and the tools allow us to streamline the deployment into production, build the monitoring tools, and making sure the whole thing actually go live and produce the value that we expect it to. So going a little deeper into each one of those roles, let me give you a few examples of how does it look in my team. So if you go back to the machine learning engineer role, I'll give you an example. So one example that were a successful project that a machine learning engineer developed was trying to predict our sales tomorrow. How many glasses and contact lenses we're going to sell tomorrow. And the idea here was basically to leverage AWS forecast using our sales and marketing and other data sources to accurately predict our sales in the future. So it's tomorrow, next week, and up till the end of the month. And we were able to do that with a very high level of accuracy. But the foundation for the solution here was AWS forecast. So we didn't build the model, we didn't develop the model, we just used the tool that existed there with our specific data and a little bit of configuration and optimization. A different example where we used the senior machine learning engineer was trying to predict how much a customer is going to spend with us in the next 6 months. And obviously, having a good understanding of how much the customer is going to spend with us in the next 6 months give us great visibility and great ability to save money and target them correctly. We can direct our marketing spend and customer retention offers and basically decide how much time and money we want to spend on those customers. If they're going to leave us or if we know that they are valuable customers, then we might want to treat them differently. So we were able to build a custom machine learning model, train it on our data, and get to a very high level of accuracy when predicting the purchases for the next 6 months. Third example for data scientists was when the business came to us and asked us to do an analysis on product returns. Why are product being returned. So again, the data scientist is more of a person that dives into the data, trying to understand it, and we looked at different reasons and trying to find the logic and the reason in the behavior of customers that cause them to return products, which is something obviously we are trying to reduce and avoid as much as possible. So the data scientist didn't build a model, it was more diving into the data, building some dashboard and trying to describe what they see in the data. So it's different roles than the previous two. And we touched about the MLOps, but again, it's building the foundation to allow all those models to run and actually bring the value that we were planning to bring. So we talked about building the delivery plan, we talked about the infrastructure for the team, and we even talked about the team members' roles. So lastly, just to wrap everything up, I want to touch a little bit about building a team, mostly from things I've seen and learned in the last year. Obviously, we haven't done everything perfectly, but we did take a lot of lessons from that. So the way I see building the team is those three concentric circles. So obviously it starts with the team itself. And whenever you're building up a new machine learning team or expanding your team, you need to keep in mind that there's usually a lot of knowledge in the organization. There's usually already people that have experience looking at the data, doing some kind of data analytics, and taking advantage of those people and bringing them into the team can be very, very helpful. Obviously, if that doesn't help, then you go to Adam and you hire external resources because he is the man. He can get you whatever you need, and you don't need to pay $200,000 for that. He will tell them that they're crazy. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the people that you bring into the team is that constant learning mindset. That's, I would say, the most important thing for me. No one knows everything, and the machine learning field is moving so fast. So we need to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse. If it can be formal training, it can be on-the-job training, it can be whatever is needed for people to keep growing and keeping up to date with what's happened in the industry. And that kind of leads us to the second circle, which is the support circle. So whatever your team is doing and whatever your areas of expertise, it's always good to have some help and support, people you can trust on. And it can be people that are expert with the data. It can be people that can help you with your cloud computing needs. Because let's be honest, who really wants to spend time with roles and access and VPCs? We want to do the fun stuff, not the cloud computing infrastructure setup. And sometimes you might even need help with building your machine learning model. So having this support network, if it's any organization or your cloud provider or anyone that can help you, is a major important step, because you will hit a point when you really need someone to talk to or someone to ask, or you need some help. So make sure you have this support net from day one. And lastly, the stakeholders. So one of the most important things for us is to show the value of machine learning. People don't necessarily know what machine learning can do for them, how machine learning can help them. If I go into the warehouse and ask them, do you need machine learning? They probably tell me that no. But if I'll go in the warehouse and ask them, Do you need someone to automatically count your inventory? Or do you need something to automatically track orders? Or do you need something to help you optimize the organization of the warehouse? Then obviously the answer will be completely different. So sometimes you need to take people through this extra step of explaining to them what machine learning can do for help, or how machine learning can help them, and what is even possible in the field, or even what the competition is doing sometimes, just to get them a little more scared. And building those trust and relationship with your stakeholders is the major important step. It's not trying to educate or force things on them, is working on them, showing them what we can bring, building the trust, showing them the project as it's being built, and even more importantly, is supporting them after the model is in production. I think one of the biggest lessons I took in the last year is that machine learning project is not done when the model is in production. The machine learning project is done when the customer or the stakeholder is using it properly and getting the value from it. And those two steps might be very different. There might be a huge gap between putting the model into production and the customer making the value that they expect from this model. So just want you to keep that in mind. And with that, I will wrap up my presentation.
We hear often presenters at our events talk about something between like 80 to 90% of AI machine learning projects fail to deliver or don't see the light of production. We obviously kind of appreciate it was a greenfield project for you, but clearly, what questions did you ask, and what was your kind of thinking when you were thinking about, I'm sure you would have heard that statistic before, what was going through your mind when you were setting up this practice on how to start small and really make sure you are delivering value on these models and building the team?
So awesome question. So I would say two things. One, and we kind of touched on that, is bring value to the business. What do they really need? If I give them the answer right now, can they use it? Do they know how to use it? And will it help them bring more value? If I give this prediction number to the marketing team, can they bring more sales using it right now? Okay, so that would be one. The second thing would be more on the technical side. There are many machine learning projects that are more risky, we'll call it, image processing or more advanced model. And there's definitely projects that are less risky, like trying to predict sales. It's more a simple problem that has been solved in the past, and there are many solutions to that. So definitely start with the low risk ones where you can bring values. I think that would be my two parameters for choosing the ones to start with.
What are the main challenges you faced when you communicate the scaling needs of your team to the executives?
So I would say the main challenge would be to get them to believe in machine learning. Everyone heard the word, everyone is into the hype, but they don't really know what it means. What can it do for them, and why should they support it? So kind of getting the executive and the C-level on board with where we are going, where we should go, and kind of the direction. And kind of showing, just to add to that, showing them how machine learning can help achieve the organization vision. Showing them the importance of properly using machine learning in order to achieve the vision that they set up.